The film begins by introducing an unemployed man named Sakkarin. Having been out of work for a long time, he frequently receives questions from his neighbors, which makes Sakkarin uncomfortable. As a result, Sakkarin pretends to be a very busy bank employee. Not only that, but Sakkarin also deceives his mother and grandmother by saying that he works as a bank employee, whereas in reality, Sakkarin is just a motorcycle taxi driver. At home, Sakkarin's mother, who used to be a nightclub singer, has started a laundry business because her husband has passed away and Sakkarin's grandmother is often ill. Additionally, the family lives in an area situated on the riverbank. Every morning, Sakkarin leaves for work pretending to be a bank employee, wearing a bank uniform and other related items. However, upon arriving in town, Sakkarin changes clothes and becomes a motorcycle taxi driver. Besides being unemployed, Sakkarin is also single. While waiting for passengers, Sakkarin becomes so familiar with the sounds of all the motorcycles there that he can recognize them. One day, while Sakkarin is enjoying time with his motorcycle taxi friends, he unexpectedly encounters a beautiful woman named Jai. To his surprise, Jai is an old schoolmate whom Sakkarin used to have a crush on. Feeling insecure because he is now just a motorcycle taxi driver, Sakkarin tries to hide his face so Jai won't recognize him. Unexpectedly, Jai decides to take the motorcycle that Sakkarin is riding. During the ride, Jai suddenly removes Sakkarin's mask and introduces herself as his former schoolmate, although Sakkarin already knows this. However, Sakkarin pretends not to know Jai because he feels very embarrassed about his current situation. It turns out that Jai is not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted, and she eventually gives Sakkarin her phone number so he can contact her anytime. The next day, Sakkarin and his friends are back at the motorcycle taxi base. When Jai comes again, everyone is surprised and captivated by her beauty, while Sakkarin is ready to take her for a ride. However, just as Jai is about to get on his motorcycle, Bobby arrives and takes the motorcycle, so Sakkarin ends up not driving Jai and instead has to drive Bobby. On the other hand, one of Sakkarin's neighbors is a retired police officer named Uncle Precha. After retiring, Uncle Precha became unemployed and feels lonely, so he often suspects Sakkarin. Apparently, Uncle Precha is suspicious of Sakkarin's strange behavior and doubts that he is actually a bank employee. One day, Uncle Preacher encounters Sakkarin while they are on the train. Realizing his neighbor's presence, Sakkarin immediately tries to flee to avoid his lie being exposed. At the same time, Uncle Preacher, who still has ambitions as a police officer, decides to chase Sakkarin with determination. However, Uncle Preacher eventually has a confrontation with the monks, resulting in Uncle Preacher being kicked by the monks. The next day, while Sakkarin was with his motorcycle taxi friends, he received a customer who requested that Sakkarin drive faster during the trip. Apparently, Sakkarin was known for speeding, but he also often drove recklessly. While riding, Sakkarin almost collided with Long, a local thug, which led Long to chase Sakkarin and try to attack him. However, Long ended up being chased by the police as well, because Long, being a notorious troublemaker, often caused problems. Unexpectedly, the police misunderstood and thought Sakkarin was Long, leading to Sakkarin being taken to the police station and asked to pay a fine for causing a disturbance, even though the real culprit was Long, not Sakkarin. Confused and seeking a loan, Sakkarin, who was just a poor man, remembered his encounter with Jai. Therefore, he decided to call Jai and borrow money from her, and fortunately, Jai agreed to lend him the money. Soon after, to further convince his family that he worked as a bank employee, Sakkarin came up with a wild idea. One day, Sakkarin brought his motorcycle taxi friends, Wang Ai and Ba Gong, to disguise themselves as bank employees and introduce them to his family. At the time, Uncle Preacher was at Sakkarin's home, so he immediately began interrogating Sakkarin's friends. During the interrogation, Wang Ai, who was overly confident, boasted nonstop, which made Sakkarin's mother suspicious about whether Wang Ai and Ba Gong were actually bank employees, as their statements seemed nonsensical, like those of drug users. His mother then took Sakkarin aside and questioned why Wang Ai and Ba Gong seemed so unintelligent, also questioning their legitimacy as bank employees. Meanwhile, Uncle Preacher, always curious about others' business, also followed Sakkarin and his mother to the back and asked Sakkarin if what Wang Ai and Ba Gong said was true. At the same time, Wang Ai and Ba Gong started feeling scared after realizing they had been speaking nonsense. With no other choice, Ba Gong eventually instructed Wang Ai to give drugs to Sakkarin's mother and Uncle Precha to make them forget. Unexpectedly, the drugs had a side effect, causing anyone who took them to become aroused and forget previous events. Soon after, Uncle Preacher returned, so Wang Ai immediately offered him the drink. When about to drink it, Uncle Preacher, a former policeman, grew suspicious about why Wang Ai suddenly gave him the drink. Furthermore, Wang Ai, who had been acting strangely, was now very polite. Feeling uneasy, Uncle Preacher decided not to drink it. Seeing this, Wang Ai urged Uncle Preacher to drink, knowing that it would make him forget the incident. Eventually, Uncle Preacher asked Wang Ai to also drink it, causing both to forget and become very aroused due to the drug side effect. To express his excitement, Uncle Preacher decided to take a bath in the river. The next day, Sakkarin met Jai to repay his debt. At that moment, they also decided to have lunch together at a restaurant. During the meal, Sakkarin was actually thinking of ways to date Jai, but his hopes were dashed when Jai revealed that she once had a very handsome boyfriend, although it was in the past. Jai also confided in Sakkarin that her ex-boyfriend often yelled at her, which made her uncomfortable at work. After lunch, Sakkarin and Jai felt very comfortable with each other, so they continued their meeting into the evening, when Sakkarin invited Jai to a night park. At the park, Sakkarin and Jai unexpectedly ran into Uncle Preacher. Therefore, Sakkarin tried to avoid being seen by his neighbor, but Jai decided to approach a shooting gallery managed by Uncle Preacher. With no other choice, Sakkarin reluctantly followed Jai's decision and played there while wearing a helmet and mask to disguise himself. Unexpectedly, Uncle Preacher made jokes during their game, although they were not very funny. As they spent the day together, romantic feelings between Sakkarin and Jai began to develop. A few days later, when they arrived home, Jai suddenly sent a message to Sakkarin inviting him out the next day. Seeing this, Sakkarin was very pleased, thinking that Jai had invited him out for a second date. However, it was a misunderstanding. The next day, Jai invited Sakkarin out, not for a date, but to visit her boyfriend who was cheating in an apartment. Seeing this, Sakkarin, who was just an ordinary and skinny man, felt scared and brought Wang Ai and Ba Gong along. Unexpectedly, Jai's suspicion was correct as her boyfriend was indeed cheating with his own subordinate. Jai immediately scolded her boyfriend and ordered the woman he was cheating with to leave the room without clothes. The incident ended with Jai shocking her boyfriend directly on his chest. The next day, Sakkarin was talking to his mother, who informed him that a friend of his father's worked at Sakkarin's workplace. His mother also mentioned that she was invited to sing at an event at the bank where he worked. Sakkarin, who had actually lied to his mother, panicked and chose an extreme idea to attend the event, even though he was not really a bank employee there. During the event, Sakkarin brought his friends Wang Ai and Ba Gong to disguise themselves as bank employees. At the big celebration at the bank, Wang Ai, who was not very smart, behaved inappropriately by greeting people randomly. Apparently, Wang Ai did not know who he was greeting and just waved around aimlessly. During the event, Jai's ex-boyfriend saw Sakkarin from a distance and immediately chased him. Realizing this, Sakkarin ran to the restroom and met his father's friend mentioned by his mother earlier. At that moment, the man approached to introduce himself. Unfortunately, Jai's ex-boyfriend had seen Sakkarin enter the restroom, so he immediately followed him there as well. Unexpectedly, Jai also learned about the situation and quickly rescued Sakkarin, taking him away from the place. After ensuring they were safe, Jai asked Sakkarin why he was disguising himself as a bank employee. Sakkarin explained that he was embarrassed to his mother because he only worked as an ordinary motorcycle taxi driver. Therefore, Sakkarin decided to disguise himself as a bank employee as he was inspired by his deceased father, who was a bank manager. Additionally, Sakkarin also considered bank employees to be impressive people. It turned out, Sakkarin had applied for jobs at various banks for years after graduating from college, but no bank ever hired him. Eventually, Sakkarin chose to pretend to work at a bank. Hearing this, Jai, who was kind and understanding, did not judge Sakkarin harshly, but encouraged him to take the bank test again. Unbeknownst to them, Jai's ex-boyfriend overheard the conversation and intended to inform Sakkarin's mother about the deception he had been committing all this time. Fortunately, Wang Ai and Ba Gong, who were drunk and accidentally bumped into Jai's ex-boyfriend, caused him to fall to the ground. Some time later, an opportunity arose when Bank NCB announced a job opening. This news also reached Jai, who immediately thought of Sakkarin. Apparently, Jai cared deeply about his fate and wanted to see him succeed, so she promptly suggested that Sakkarin apply for the position at the bank. Moreover, Jai knew how important this opportunity was for Sakkarin and was determined to help him. Sakkarin, who had experienced various failures and rejections in his previous attempts to get hired at different banks, felt traumatized and hesitant to try again. Additionally, his courage had been worn down by past bitter experiences, making him feel doubtful about the possibility of success this time. Nevertheless, the encouragement and support from Jai, who was enthusiastic and confident in his abilities, eventually persuaded Sakkarin to take a bold step and take the test. With hope and nervousness, Sakkarin underwent the rigorous selection process. He had prepared himself as best as he could and tried to give his best effort. Despite his hard work, the test results did not meet his expectations, and Sakkarin faced failure once again, adding to his emotional burden. This disappointment further deepened his frustration and despair, but Jai's support remained a source of strength and motivation to keep moving forward. A few days later, Jai's ex-boyfriend, who had recovered, went straight to Sakkarin's house and immediately informed Sakkarin's mother about the deception Sakkarin had been carrying out all this time. At the same time, Jai also learned that her ex-boyfriend intended to expose the deception, so she immediately contacted Sakkarin, who rushed home to stop Jai's ex-boyfriend from revealing the fraud. Unfortunately, Sakkarin was too late, as his lies had already been exposed by Jai's ex-boyfriend, who revealed that he was just an ordinary motorcycle taxi driver. Seeing his mother's reaction, Sakkarin was very frightened. In the midst of the tension, Sakkarin's grandmother suddenly suffered a stroke, so Sakkarin immediately took her to the hospital. At the hospital, Sakkarin apologized to his mother for lying to her. Unexpectedly, his mother already knew about the deception because she had followed Sakkarin on the train and discovered that, on his way to work as a bank employee, Sakkarin changed into his motorcycle taxi driver outfit. Sometime later, Sakkarin and his mother were confused because the hospital bills were very expensive. With no other options, Sakkarin again asked Jai for a loan, but due to the high costs, she was unable to help. Unexpectedly, Wang Ai and Ba Gong gave their money to Sakkarin. Eventually, Sakkarin's grandmother was able to recover, and the three of them could return home. On the way back by boat, Sakkarin suddenly received a call from the bank stating that he had been accepted as a bank employee. As a result, Sakkarin felt very happy because he had achieved his dream of becoming a bank employee. Sakkarin also informed Jai and asked her to meet at the bank. Unexpectedly, Sakkarin's acceptance at the bank was due to her resignation from her job, creating a vacancy at the bank. Apparently, Jai decided to leave her career as a bank employee to pursue her dream of becoming a pilot. Moral lesson from the story: always be honest about your job, or you might get caught in a mess of misunderstandings and awkward encounters. Also, it's better to be honest. Otherwise, you might get caught in a funny situation, like having to explain why you're wearing a bank uniform at a motorcycle base.